This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 32 of the video game podcast PlayStation Pals. I'm your host Nick, and I'm joined by the Lewis to my Sam, John. John, we should record this in a bar.
That would be awesome. I wasn't expecting that, but I think that the show would be... audio might suffer a bit, but I know you and I would just be a little more loose, little...
get really good at the end.
A little more slap happy. I feel like we might laugh enough as it is, so maybe that would just be... maybe that was like the worst idea you've ever had. I don't know, but I'm down to try.
When the podcast takes off and we can afford to build our own podcast studio, it's gonna have a bar in it. So we
just need a kegerator. Like I feel like if we can have a way to like have a our PlayStation Pals mugs, chalices, goblets, whatever we want. Yeah. And to be able to just reach over to the side, pour a tap, and have whatever you want to drink, that'd be. I might even put like Mountain Dew in mine, just to, in the spirit of video games, in the spirit of being a full-blown nerd, Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right, yeah. Well, when the podcast takes off, we'll do it. I don't want to waste any time because I really want to talk about HBO's The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. We are saving it for the sixth thing, so there will be no spoilers till the very end. So let's just move right into it.
I'm ready, man. I'm wearing my Xbox shirt. I'm ready to talk PlayStation.
He is literally wearing an Xbox shirt.
Yeah, who bought this for me, though?
As a joke!
Yeah, well, it was still purchased by the guy sitting across the table from me, so I'm not going to disrespect my friend by not wearing his gifts.
All right, let's go. This is how it works. We each bring three things to talk about. It can be a video game we're playing. It can be a news article. It can be a topic. It can be an email to PlayStationPalsPod@gmail.com or a Twitter DM at PSPalsPod. Any of those things, we bring it and we talk about it.
You're feeling it today, aren't you, bud?
I'm caffeinated up. I got my Mountain Dew Pitch Black in me.
Perfect.
New flavor.
It only took one day to be on the shelves for us to get it in here. So my Mountain Dew joke is maybe a little more apt than I thought.
It's not beer, but it'll do. And I'm going to kick things off with, normally we talk about the Defcon level because we're, inching closer and closer to this PSVR 2, and we think that there's going to be a state of play or some kind of showcase to show off all the games coming to it. But Sony kind of threw us a curveball this week because announced on the PlayStation blog, they had the article 13 new titles and launch lineup revealed for the PSVR 2. This kind of throws in a wrench into the fact that we thought that there would be a showcase that would just do this for us, that would have all these games there, and we'd get like a little short trailers for all of them. But nope, here we go again. So, John, where are we at in the Defcon level? Are we moving it up like we said last week? Or are we going to take it back now that this blog article is out there?
Oh, we're moving it up, baby. Yeah, we're moving it up. I think despite this showing up randomly, I think all this really tells us is that Sony is trying to determine what is most important right now, what information needs to be to the public most relevantly. And while PlayStation VR is exciting and it's new and it's all this stuff, it really is going to be a very small footprint in the grand scheme of their total business structure. But what is not going to be a small footprint is what is coming from their first party, from the third party, from everything like that, which we still know nothing about as well. So I think we're moving it up because we still need all of that, and we've gotten some other interesting rumors and things kind of percolating over the past week as well. Most notably for me, famed leaker The Snitch, who kind of rose to, I think, prominence last year. I think it was the Silent Hill rumors conference before that showed up, but it might have been something else. But this guy kind of has a foolproof track record of knowing things. And he says that there is going to be a Sony third-party content conference coming here shortly, or some sort of announcement, or, you know, it might even be just a state of play. But I think we're going to be getting some stuff soon. So I think we're moving it up to a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to see more Hogwarts Legacy and Forspoken. So,
Yeah,
we
that's
know
what
that
we need to see.
we know that they'll be featured in this. So you said 3? Is that where we're going to be at?
I'm moving it up to 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Prove me wrong.
Okay. Yeah, we're in it. I mean, we're less than a month away by the time you're listening to this, or exactly a month. So it should be. We should get something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to kind of modify, I think, what I've said on past podcasts, though, is that I think now with kind of just the landscape of everything, Forspoken might come up later in the podcast. I don't know if it will, but that seems to have some weird stuff going on. Hogwarts is Harry Potter, so it's just going to carry itself. I don't know if you really need to dive in crazy on that. I think we'll see a big something right after the VR release. I think that's when we're going to get a decent amount of third-party news and whatnot that's going to kind of outline the summer and following the rest of the year. I think that's when they'll do it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think. I'm thinking with you. I'm thinking next week would be good for a showcase. So
it could be, and and they might do the thing where it's like, hey, we're going to do a dedicated state of play for Hogwarts because we want people to have all the information, but not going to give you anything else. And then the internet will be mad again because we don't know what else is coming. But then again, what we should get. Hopefully something right after the PSVR VR2 comes out, right. And the Oxygen comes back from that announcement. So
yeah, because I think it is also good to know is what else is coming to PSVR 2 later this year. What is the big fall game?
I mean, that's the hope. It's the Vita suffered greatly, obviously, famously from not having any support from really Sony first party. VR1 started off pretty strong, but if you paid attention to the MPDs month in and month out, it was the same games every single month for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So they really kind of, despite saying initially with the launch of VR1 that they were going to support this thing better than the Vita, I'd argue that they really didn't. So here's to hoping that this is the one. It seems like the tech is there. Everybody who plays it loves it. Call of the Mountain's getting great buzz. So hopefully that gives them enough confidence to put a little bit more behind supporting this thing long term. But yeah, mm-hmm. I'm with you. We need just once again we need Alex. Yeah. Alex is going to save that machine. If Alex shows up, it's huge. Mm-hmm. If she doesn't, people are going to just inherently be mad, even if there's other games to play.
Well, the internet being mad is
never.
Normal thing.
Yeah.
All right. But just before we move on, any of these 13 games that they showed off, I know there's a lot of returning games such as Thumper, mm-hmm. Tetris.
Thumper, which was one of my answers last week for hidden games.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And Tetris and Rez was also on there. So a couple of returning franchises that have had normal releases are getting VR releases, and I know you saw the What the Bat and thought that was a very entertaining and fun looking game. It's kind of you have bats for hands and you have to cook eggs and do ridiculous things. So
yeah, I mean that's probably the only one. I mean So What the Bat looks to be a sequel of sorts to What the Golf, which is a take on a golf game where you think you're going to be hitting the ball, but then all of a sudden your character is the ball and it flies towards the pin, or a car all of a sudden does. It's just weird golf. So baseball is my main sport. I love baseball. Just holding a bat in my hands gives me a very warm and fuzzy feeling. So if I get my hands on this VR2, which Nick has told me that I will because I have no control what have yous. I'll probably pick that up. But the only other one is maybe Kayak VR, just because I'm an outdoors junkie. Mm-hmm. If it's a $10 experience where I can paddle around the Grand Canyon or down the Grand Canyon, or I don't know, could be cool. But I'm sure it's not really a fun game, so to speak.
You know what I just crossed my mind that we haven't really talked about in regards to PSVR 2?
What's that?
Is how much better... What?
Porn? No?
Well, yeah, of course.
How much better porn will be?
That's implied. Everyone knows that.
Okay.
But how much better value that PlayStation Plus Extra will be
Yeah.
with PSVR 2 thrown in there.
Oh yeah, they can just throw all of this stuff, like any of the games that aren't selling well at all. It's just extra value to say, hey, you subscribe to this, you're gonna automatically have 20 VR games at your disposal. Maybe even do something like the PlayStation Essentials, or what was it called when they had the 20 games?
It was the collection.
Yeah, like, hey, we're revamping the collection and throwing in 5, good VR games. Russia Blood's gonna, throw that on there. But then again, they have to develop that again for VR2 because it is such a different machine. So maybe that would be a little bit too much of a lift. But yeah, I think they'd be crazy not to start throwing in some of these games.
Yeah, I think it's a much easier pill to swallow when you're spending $550 on a piece of hardware on top of what you've already paid for the PS5 to have this added value of PlayStation Plus Extra to just kind of keep your VR2 library full of games to play.
Yeah, I do remember though that when VR1 came out, I kind of expected them to throw in a VR game every month too, and they didn't. So
there's not a lot.
Right, and that's kind of the thing. Depending again how much they support this thing, do they don't want to get 75% of the catalog out there for free. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll throw some stuff on there as long as they don't lessen the stuff that other people who don't have VR2 are getting. That would be a bad move, but
right.
I don't think they'd do that.
All right, so are we good? Defcon Level 3 we're at, so
Yeah.
Be ready, people.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to the next topic, I wanted to talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. An image of the game's menu leaked this week, and the main reason I want to talk about this is to rub it in John's face.
What did I do? What happened?
In our 2023 preview, John was like, "Oh, why don't you have this game on your list? Like, it's from Rocksteady. You gotta have this on this list. How is it not in your top anticipated games of the year?" And I said, because I don't know what it is, and and this leak proves my point as to what it is. So this leaked image is of the game's menu, and it looks something right out of Call of Duty Warzone, like
Fortnite.
Yep, or Fortnite or anything like that. It has the 4 main characters: Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, King Shark, and Deadshot, standing there in their Call of Duty poses. And then this is the interesting part: is the top menu. So the menu has squad. I'm sorry, I gotta zoom in here. Enhance.
Enhance my eyes.
Loadout, taunts, social, battle pass,
Ooh.
store,
Oh, fun.
codex, and options. So
Battle Pass, you say?
yeah, so battle pass. So again, this doesn't sound good. I don't think anyone listening will be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
great news on all this," because again, it looks like a live service game as akin to a Fortnite, a Warzone, an Apex Legends. And what does that mean for this game? Is it heavily multiplayer? Are there going to be like weekly challenges, raids, just a bunch of content to keep you coming back? Is it just going to be a grind like Destiny 2, Avengers, any of that? Like, this does not look good. And again, I'm still going to leave it out there that I'm cautiously optimistic.
Because it looks so good to play. That's the bummer.
That's where I was going to go. I was like, I went back and watched the gameplay trailer, and I'm like, this just looks awesome. It just looks fun and fast and open world. But when you see this menu and you think of how that's going to impact how the game plays, your mind goes to not great places.
It's moments like these that really kind of make me check myself and be like, am I just becoming an old man? Because I don't like the direction anything is heading in, man. And in video games, this is just one of the biggest examples where, you take this studio who developed one of the greatest video game series of all time, and the reason that, of course, Nick, that I expected this game is the answer to what's your favorite game of all time typically bounces around with Batman Arkham Asylum. So
Right.
You're taking this studio who developed these games not very long, 8 years ago, which is a long period of time for video game development, but in terms of grand scale of time, not that big of a deal. And we just fast forward 8 years, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we have to abandon everything we do, single player focused, full open world fun content, because it's not going to be profitable enough, because it's not going to make us enough money, because Batman himself is not a big enough character to pull in, the amount of revenue we need to keep this thing going. So what do we have to do? Well, we need to do what's been proven from everybody else, from Epic Games, from these, from Psyonix with Rocket League, battle passes, to enhance cosmetics, to keep people coming back. And it's just so sad, because it's just opportunity cost. We're taking this world-class developer, Rocksteady, some of the best in the business, and I don't know if they're chasing trends or what, or who, these people in the boardroom making these decisions. I'm tired of companies and everybody just going after money over quality.
Right.
That's what everything seems like.
And we've said it before, let these studios do what they do best and they flourish, when we saw BioWare take a swing on Anthem, it blew up in their face, because that's not what they do. And
I think in that case, if you kind of go back, they were getting a lot of pressure from EA to do something specific, and their team didn't really want to, but they were almost backed into a corner. And look what happens.
Yeah, well, the experience is not there. Like, maybe they did want to, but, creating a live service game is not easy,
No.
Especially when you're making single-player RPG games. And same with, the Arkham series, is a third-person combat game with stealth that doesn't use guns at all. And now you're having a game with 4 characters with guns in a giant open world, swinging all around, doing all kinds of crazy things. Like just that alone is going to be a challenge for Rocksteady. This is the most ambitious project they've ever done. And then now you're going to throw on that it has all these live service elements. And I'm just afraid that this game is going to be so grindy. It's going to have levels. Yeah. It's going to have all the things that are just really not great. Prolonged boss fights, stuff like that. Oh boy.
You know what I've never wanted from a developer, Nick, is I've never wanted them to give me a reason to stay around in perpetuity, ever.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a me thing. It would almost be interesting. I almost feel like I should interview my nephew. And my nephew, who is 9 years old, plays Minecraft, things like that. I'd be interested to show him hey, I know you know what the Suicide Squad is. Check out this new game. And then ask him, how do you feel about this game having a battle pass? And just to see what his response is. Because, I'd be curious if he's like, oh, yeah, that's awesome, because then I can get new skins and stuff. Mm-hmm. Or if he would be like, no, I don't care. Because I just would love to know, are studio executives just either horrible individuals who say, fuck them, we know what they want, but we're not going to give it to them because it doesn't line our pockets enough? Or are there a group of people out there who genuinely, this is why they enjoy games, and just really get to the bottom of it? Because as a 33-year-old guy, I have never in my life come across anybody within 10 years of my age saying sweet battle pass. It's just it's bleeding into. It was fine when it was just multiplayer games, when it was Rocket League and Warzone and things like that, because it allowed things to be separate, church and state, right? And now it just seems like those lines are getting closer and closer together, and I don't like it. I swear to God, if Uncharted 5 comes out and yeah, we got a battle pass, I'm selling my PlayStation. I'm done.
I mean, it's always great when it adds the progression. I think Rocket League is kind of the best version of that, because that they got the free to play progression and then the multiplayer or the battle pass progression, and they each have their own unique challenges and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's just I'm putting in 100 hours a month into Rocket League anyway. This is just an added benefit, an added bonus. It works. It can work.
Yeah.
But boy, does Rocksteady / Warner Brothers have a giant hill to climb now to explain this game, all of this game, which comes out in 4 months, and explain why it has all these live games as a service elements in it, and how are they not going to take away from the single player, quote unquote, 4-player co-op game. I'm excited to see how they're going to explain all this. They're going to have to do a big multi-tiered video of them explaining this.
Yeah.
Because this is already not a great start for a game that's been often delayed, and again, 8 years since their last game.
Yeah, they have a task, man. I mean, the number one commodity out there right now, and in my opinion, for everybody, anywhere, video games or regardless, is time. And there's only so much of that. And if you have these people who are, addicted to Fortnite, addicted to Apex Legends, Warzone, whatever the case, it takes such a heavy lift to get them out of that ecosystem and into a new one. And, as we'll discuss later with another developer or publisher, it's such a risk. And if this doesn't take off for them, that's 8 years since Rocksteady's had a game, and nobody owns them, right? They're one of the rare independent.
I think Warner Brothers does.
Warner Brothers. Okay, Warner Brothers. So I'm sure they would stay afloat. Warner Brothers would give them the revenue they need. It's just, if it's a miss, like Hyperscape for Ubisoft, that can be very, very bad for a team. And I don't know. It's just I don't like the direction. But I'm an old man, so I just hope I hope there is a way to have the single player experience be good, because like I said earlier, I would love to play it. It looks fluid, fun, chaotic, great.
Yeah, and just it makes me think of another bad example was Shadow of War. The sequel to Shadow of Mordor, and the same thing. They had to add, a store and games as a service elements to it, and it ruined the game. That game reviewed worse than the one before it. So we'll see. Again, I'm gonna keep an open mind on this one, but I'm not slapping any money on this game until it launches, and then I'll watch.
Do you have a review score in your mind is it 80 again?
For sure.
I mean, it's definitely going to get up. Rocksteady is just so good. Arkham City got a 96. It's just come on.
We'll see,
You'll
man.
prove us wrong. I enjoy Rocket League. I don't engage in any of that, and so maybe this could do the same.
Yeah.
Here's hoping.
All right. Well, let's move on.
All right. Hold on. I don't have the list in front of me. I'm pretty sure we're talking about Ubisoft.
Yeah, your boy. Your favorite publisher.
My favorite publisher. All right, guys. So, as we've done a couple times in the past, these deep dives into publishers, I just think Ubisoft right now is a very interesting studio to look at. They've had a lot of tumultuous couple years, and it doesn't seem to be getting better for them. So I just did a little bit of research and kind of want to go over the history of Ubisoft a little bit and just get your thoughts, Nick, on what we think the direction of them, or where they're heading, and maybe how do we right this ship. But just wanted to kind of go back a little bit in time, so bear with me. Kind of got a little bit to go through, but starting in 1996, Ubisoft listed its initial public offering and raised $80 million in funds to help them expand the company. Within 2 years, they established worldwide studios in Annecy, Shanghai, Montreal, and Milan. The Gaumont brothers early realized that they had a lack of IP and would need to take a foothold into the U.S. market if they wanted to be successful. To help with this, in 2000, Ubisoft purchased Red Storm Entertainment, which gave them access to the ever-important Tom Clancy series of stealth and spy games, which they helped usher in Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, among others. The company then did get that massive foothold in the United States with that, as well as with partnering with Microsoft to develop Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, which was initially pitched as a rival game to to Sony's Metal Gear Solid franchise. They continue to expand and grow their portfolio of IP, developing hit games such as Prince of Persia: Sands of Time in 2003, as well as the cult classic Beyond Good and Evil in the same year. The company then was able to take the success of Prince of Persia and develop perhaps the most important IP in Ubisoft history, certainly the most important now, in 2007's Assassin's Creed, which I think kind of brought on the golden era of Ubisoft. In 2008, they made a deal with Tom Clancy for perpetual use of his name and intellectual property for video games and other auxiliary media, which is insane that happened. And, I'm sure Tom Clancy is rolling around in his grave when he sees something like Tom Clancy's X-Defiant. But in November of that same year, they purchased Massive Entertainment from Activision, which is the team that spearheaded The Division. I think it's their best team. In 2013, they purchased The Stick of Truth for about $3 million to work on that. 2011, they revived Rayman, made Rayman Origins, and followed that up in 2014 with Rayman Legends. They really got a strong, effort from their Ubi Art division when they in 2014 with Valiant Hearts and Child of Light, which are very different from the typical Ubisoft formula games that we have. And so, I know that only brought us to 2014, but since then we can kind of get a good picture of them, right? They've been the Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs team. And, they have their Just Dances and things in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the reason that I looked into this is because we've gotten reports as of late that Ubisoft is canceling another 3 unannounced games. And this is 6 months after they've canceled 4 other games. So that's 7 games that they've canceled in 6 months. They have announced that they need to cut £200 million or dollars, I'm not sure which, honestly, but a large sum of money in spending just because they're far too bloated. They've been battling sexual allegations. They've had a mass exodus of management at their studios, which might explain why they can't get out games in a timely manner. We just saw the delay of Skull and Bones for the 7th time, which is just, I don't even know what to say about that anymore. And it's just looking bad to worse. I'm not out here to say that Ubisoft is going to die next year, but I do think that they are in a very bad position because one of the biggest issues that they have is they have 21,000 employees. They have so many people spread across so many different teams that they almost have done themselves a disservice in where they're at now because they pretty much can't be purchased by anybody. Jeff Grubb reported a little bit ago that they actually already went through the rounds of trying to get purchased from people, and they were essentially laughed out of the room because there is no way to manage that many people spread across so many teams. There are 41 different Ubisoft city teams, or whatever you want, Ubisoft Montreal, Ubisoft Toronto, whatever the case. Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think, Nick? What do you think is the way that they could potentially start to get on the right track to fix some things, because this isn't even starting to talk about the fact that Yves Guillemot, kind of basically starting to put the blame. Yves Guillemot is the CEO of Ubisoft. He sent an email out saying that it's balls in the court of the developers to get this ship righted, which obviously was not a great thing to say because most people seem to think that this is a management issue, this is a higher up issue. So what would you do, Nick, if you were in charge of trying to get Ubisoft, back kind of along the track they need to be?
Well, they grew that big because they were trying to make an Assassin's Creed game every year, which is just insanity.
12 of them a year, or 12 of them in 15 years.
I would just slim down and focus on, the Sony strategy. Like get 2 to 3 big releases every year. They have the IPs. They got Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora, Assassin's Creed. What's their other big game they got? They got Star Wars coming, so they have, if those games hit, it's all about what have you done for me lately. They can come back for sure. Those are big properties to have, but it just sucks they got to release Skull and Bones.
Yeah, and that's kind of my issue is like they've dug themselves such a hole that every time a game is announced, released, shown, and Ubisoft is on top of it, I feel like people are just automatically, prove it to me.
Right.
Skeptical initially. And, again, I think Massive is a good team, but do you think that they need to change up this Ubisoft open world formula that they've become so known for?
That was the next thing I was going to bring up.
Because that's the thing. Every time one of those, like Avatar's shown, what Star Wars is shown, if it is another, go to the Watchtower to unlock the section. If it's that again, I just don't. I don't know. I don't see that lasting.
No, I don't either. I think even though I love those, I love what they did. That is just always been a great formula. It's being aped by so many people.
Yeah, that proves that it was successful.
Yeah, it was just such a great idea. Open world games are fantastic. I love them. It's cool to get immersed in this giant world. But yeah, they had to change something. It can't be just a checkbox, the content has to be better, and they've been better about, like with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, making those, going across an open world map, being better. Like the quests are better, and another thing. Now that I just thought about that is they gotta and I'm probably gonna get some hate for this. Is make your game smaller. Does Assassin's Creed Valhalla out with? We're not even including the 30 expansions it got later. That was a 70 to 80 hour game for me to beat. It doesn't need to be that long. It needs to be God of War length, 50 hours, 40 hours, 30 hours. Make your game smaller, make the world more dense and more rich, and development time will cut down because that's less writing, that's less designing a giant map, and then go from there. If you want to do expansions from smaller games, that's an easier pill to swallow. But I have no interest in touching any of the Assassin's Creed Valhalla expansions because I was done. That game was huge.
I remember you being done halfway through that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so. Yeah, I think you reinvent your core franchises and get them more condensed, take some chances. I know when they announced all those Assassin's Creed games, they sounded very different, so that's a good sign. They don't sound all like the same kind of project. And same with Far Cry. Let's move away from these great villain performances, these super villains, and just focus on a great story with multiple great characters, and not have just the Voss everyone loved Voss, and he just took over the franchise. It was always about the villains.
Yeah.
And Giancarlo Esposito's great, but let's move the franchise forward in some unique way. And I'm not a game designer. If I could write the ships of all their franchises, you
wouldn't be working here.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely bring Prince of Persia back. I forget, that's the third-person platformer with time rewind mechanics.
Yeah,
get someone to make that game.
Well, and that's another part of their recent problems is they've been working on this Prince of Persia remake, and I think they had Ubisoft Pune, which is a studio in India, working on it, and it was so bad, either how far behind they were or just the quality of it, that they basically pulled that from them and gave it to Ubisoft Montreal, who's their flagship team, to work on it. And it's just if that's the way you're managing your portfolio, it's just not a good cadence look to it. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I kind of have, I think, two main thoughts. I think one thing that Ubisoft would be wise to really focus on is trying to get some narrative talent into that studio, because I don't think any of their games, across any of them, have ever had a strong narrative. And if you're going to have these experiences where you need people to be on the hook, where you're not just going from go to this next thing, collect these things. You need to have this narrative thread that pulls you through it. I think Odyssey was maybe as close as it got for me, where it's, at least they had a pretty strong protagonist with Cassandra, but I couldn't tell you a single plot point throughout that game. Besides something with her mom and dad or something, I can't really remember.
Well, your brother was the bad guy.
Yeah, your brother's a dick. But, really, figure out a way to, because it's almost a crime, like you said, with the villains of Far Cry, that's all they're known for. That there's never been a way to weave a narrative where we're remembering it, be like, oh, do you remember the narrative of Far Cry 4? It was fucking amazing. Or this moment. There's no moments. It's just here's the good villain. He's a good villain, and clear all the camps in. Let's go on.
Right.
So I think they should really focus on that. And then additionally, I think unfortunately what we will see is I think we are going to see a drastic downsize of the company. And you never want to see anybody lose their jobs, but I think that is something that they're probably really, really looking to internally. If they say that they need to cut $200 million in the next 2 years, well, what's the most expensive thing for any company? It's employees.
Yeah.
So I think first they're going to kind of do some of that, whittle down it. And, you're seeing with every tech company across the board right now. I think Google just laid off 12,000. Microsoft just laid off 10,000. It's just how the world is right now. Everybody kind of coming off of COVID. It's just everybody overhired for COVID, and now they're kind of righting that ship. So I think they need to do that because they're too bloated, they're too unwieldy. Get enough people to be able to focus on Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, a small Just Dance team, because that is probably one of their bigger games, even if we'll never play it. Mm-hmm. Focus on that stuff, and then either position yourself to be bought by somebody, maybe if you want to just kind of save the company and not have to worry about it, or not start fresh, but get your core team and then go from there. You can't have 41 different teams with 21,000 employees trying to have a cohesive vision forward for a company, and so I think I think unfortunately we might see that, and hearts out to anybody losing their job, and none of that's happened yet. I just think that it seems like we're kind of heading down that route.
Yeah.
So if CEOs are sending emails to employees saying like, "Hey guys, you better perform," or
right, and get your games out,
get your games out.
Like I would be getting that Avatar game out. I'd have everybody working on that so I can get that out this year.
Yeah, and I have seen a lot of people like kind of question the Skull and Bones thing, be like, well, what if they're canceling so many games? Like, why do they believe in this thing? And one small thing to note for that is that is being developed by Ubisoft Singapore, and from what I understand is that team received subsidies from the government of Singapore for that game. With agreement that the product would be released within a certain amount of time. So I think they don't have a choice with that one, and that's why we're seeing it be delayed for the 7th time as opposed to just canceled. But
right,
I don't know. Yeah, I like Ubisoft games. I don't love them, but especially the Far Cry games are probably my favorite of them. They're just kind of fun. Good shooting mechanics and just a good world to drive around in. But
well, they're such a meat and potato developer.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is like you don't like really get like hyped for their games, but you go to it because it's comfort food.
Mm-hmm.
And
Far Cry and Assassin's Creed are still always the best-selling games.
Yeah, so I just think that they would need to get away from that and kind of have the big anticipated game. Like if we could go do our 2023 year preview or 2024 year preview and have some Ubisoft games in there. That's where they need to get to.
Give me Rayman again, man. That's what I would love to see them revitalize their art division a little bit more, and if then they need to reinvent their formula for that to happen, for what you just said to happen. Mm-hmm. They have to show the world that like, hey, we're not just the open world tower team anymore. Right. Like we have a new thing. Get hyped for it, but they're in my opinion, firmly in last place right now of the major publishers.
Oh, just sure.
Of quality, just of the state of their team. So,
yeah, what's the big game this year from them? Yeah, exactly.
Skull and Bones. Yeah, dude.
If it comes out this year,
right?
So that's why they have nothing. So
yeah.
All right.
X-Defiant.
Let's move on. Let's get some happier topics going.
No, I live in misery. Yes, let's do that.
So what's next, John?
All right, Nick, I've been playing a game lately with my son. And I'm shocked how much I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
And I think I'm enjoying it for one primary reason, is because it's a couch co-op game. That game is Goat Simulator 3. I'm not here to talk about Goat Simulator 3. It's silliness in a bottle. Like, if you want to know anything about the game, just look at one video and you'll get it. But I wanted to see if you had any good couch co-op / co-op memories, anything that sticks out,
Sure.
of a very fond memory experience with friends, anything like that. Because, I think, especially for us, quote-unquote older gamers, that was part of many of a childhood, lots of sleepovers, things like that with friends. And just, what do you got? What do you got from the co-op standpoint?
Well, for a period of my life, I lived with 3 other roommates. And we were all gamers, so you can imagine.
Oh, what a happy time that must have been.
Every Friday, Saturday was just video games, like all the time.
Was it beers and video games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably why I have an unhealthy relationship with drinking and playing video games, because of that time in my life. Like, I always associate, especially multiplayer games, Call of Duties, and all that, like drinking and playing those games. So.
Was this pre-girlfriend Nick, or was this beginning of girlfriend Nick?
The one who I'm currently with?
Yeah.
This would be pre.
Okay.
Though we met when I lived there.
Okay.
So I have a lot of good times then. So I do have a few highlights. One of them is being Resident Evil 5.
Oh, good one.
That was a co-op game, and I played through it with 4 different people.
Like 4 separate playthroughs?
Yeah, 4 separate playthroughs. I got all the achievements. I could play that game like blindfolded. Like
I never beat it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should ever play the re-release, because you can play it now.
Well, let's wait and see if they remake it. They might. I mean, who knows what they're going to do.
That's true. After really,
I mean, I don't know if they do 4 or they go to 5 or maybe Code Veronica. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So that game sticks out from that time period. Left 4 Dead is another one. We played so much of that, and it was so fun because in that game you could play as the infected and just coordinating the most perfect attack and just wiping a team out. There's nothing more satisfying than that. And then I have 2 beat 'em ups also from that time period. Castle Crashers,
Good one.
is a great one. Great game, ushered in Xbox Live Arcade, and just, man, we played so much of that. And then also Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, another great beat 'em up with RPG elements. And I just remember us all in a small bedroom sitting on a bed playing that game. So it was good times.
Is there a world for couch co-op games now? Will we ever in our lives see couch co-op games again? Like in a prevalent way?
Not at our age.
That's sad. I agree, but it's sad.
Oh, it's not like we're gonna have a bunch of buddies over. It's like it's just too convenient to just hop on the PlayStation Network and play a game.
Yeah, it is true. I'll be interested as my son gets older if he has, because when we were kids, right, Halo LAN parties and things like that. Obviously, you don't need to have a LAN party, but yeah, it'd be interesting. How they tackle that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. You got any more, or is that where you're at?
Yeah. I mean, that's from that time period of my life, but I do have I did kind of divide it up to another one is unique experiences. Mm-hmm. And I have It Takes Two on there.
Yep, so do I.
John and I played through that game together, and that was just really fun. It dragged a little bit at the end. I think we were both done with it, but throwing the elephant off the cliff is one of my favorite moments.
Wow.
When it turned into an RPG and was great, or when I was flying the plane and you were fighting on top of it,
I've been thinking about that game lately. Because I am so close to the platinum, and I feel like I should tie that up. But yeah, it was a really special. I can't remember going into a game and my expectations being exceeded so much as that one. That one, I was kind of just expecting platforming, and I think from the very first level when I realized that we had different mechanics to get through the level, I was like, oh, this is good. This is gonna be smart in the way that it does things, and it was more than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Definitely deserving of Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And then in that same boat, I also have Portal 2. That is a great game. The single player game, but then when you throw in the portal mechanics and then you have to work with another robot or another person to do it, it's just great. Portal 2 is an amazing game, and so you just throw another person in there, and it's
Portal 2 is top 3 best games of all time in my opinion. So I don't think I need to say more than that.
And then I just have 2 more, and I categorize them as relationship testers.
Overcooked.
Overcooked is in there, and Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time.
Oh, okay.
Both games that require you to work together.
Did you play a lot of that one?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Both games, I consider them girlfriend games.
Yep.
Because you'll sit with them. They're like, "What game can we play together?" And I'm like, "Well, the mechanics are simple enough for you who don't play games regularly to do this." And then
For the first world, at least.
yeah, and then especially in Overcooked, as it gets further along, and you're just like, "God, I need ham or I need lettuce."
Fire!
yeah, it's burning. Take it off. Take it off.
Yeah.
So co-op games are great. There needs to be more, especially the It Takes Two, catered to that shared experience. And I can't wait to what their next game is.
Hazelight is awesome.
Yeah.
And such a ballsy team, man. The fact that they decided that was their initiative as a team was we're developing games that are not, you cannot play them with one person. It's
Right.
Really? Okay. and then to do, and obviously they had to do it this way, I think, to be successful, but just it's such a solid too of the whole friend pass thing.
Yeah.
Just go play this. You have a friend, they don't have to buy it, download it, you're good to go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I might be hitting you up for an It Takes Two playthrough again soon. We'll see if I, can't control myself if I see it for $20, but all right, yeah, and so I obviously have a couple as well. I think a lot of mine are more from the childhood era. When I when I never had roommates really, except for college, and college was an entire Call of Duty Modern Warfare time, and so I can't really consider that co-op. We passed the sticks,
right.
We would just play a multiplayer match, and you'd get super pissed off, so you could give it to your friend to do it, and then get it back in a little bit. But so I don't have a ton from recent times, but a lot from my childhood. And so one that really was special to me was Crash Team Racing. When I was, I think, probably 4th or 5th grade, I moved to a new city. And so with all of that comes, lots of trouble as a child. You got new friends, you got to figure this all out. And I remember I made friends with one guy, Mike, we'll say Mike K was his name. And he had a lot of toys. I grew up in a pretty affluent neighborhood, I'll just say that. And so we had like arcade machines and a bowling alley in his basement and all this stuff.
Pretty affluent.
Yeah, it was great. But what we would always spend our time doing was Crash Team Racing. And I remember sleeping over at his house and like legit setting the alarm for 5:30 a.m. to get up in the morning to play more of the game because his parents made us go to bed and like, no, we want to play more. And so it's just a super fun time. I always thought Crash Team Racing was leagues and leagues better than Mario Kart, but I know I'm probably, in the minority there, so not to offend anybody, but so it was a really big one. And another one, I'd be remiss to forget NFL Blitz. NFL Blitz, whether you're a sports guy or not, is still, I think everybody just had fun in that era playing that game. Sports to 11, right? The most insane thing you can imagine. And in the same vein, NHL Hits was just the hockey version of that.
It's funny, I just played NFL Blitz last weekend.
Did you?
Yeah.
Would you go to a retro arcade?
It was Courtney's brother's birthday, and they had an N64, and they had NFL Blitz.
Oh, nice. Oh, like the OG. You played the OG one. Nice.
Yeah.
Did you win?
No.
Oh, wow.
It's been so long since I played.
Wow, Nick. Okay. You just have to do the bomb every time and just hope that they catch it.
Yeah.
And then just, a couple small ones. Super Smash Brothers, the original N64 version was my jam. Nick and I still we need to have a battle because we both claim to be we were the best of our friend group, so nobody could ever obviously beat us, but we have no idea how good we truly are because you always know that there's somebody out there that knows every tiny little thing about the game. So Super Smash Brothers played a ton of that.
Who was your character again?
My number 1 was Falcon. My number 2 was Pikachu. My number 3 was Ness. Like I could all 3 of them I was really, really good with.
Ness, huh?
Yeah.
He's a tricky player.
He's tricky, and there was one guy that I played with all the time because he was Fox, and we would it was just balls to the walls, adrenaline, and it was always really close, and it was super fun. But he learned my Falcon so well that I just couldn't use the mechanics with him anymore, so I had to switch to Pikachu, and then he learned that one, and so I was like, all right, fuck you, I'm being Ness. Like, this guy's crazy. And so, I had to learn, obviously, how to do the up B to get myself back with his little electric ball. But yeah, his little floaty jump just fucked with him so bad that I could kick his ass with Ness.
When you play people in Soul Calibur and you're just like, fuck it, I'm Voldo, or what was
is he like the weird knife guy? Yeah.
Like, fuck it, I'm beating him, and just like nobody can predict his moves because he's like walking on his back, crab walking at you and stuff.
Yeah, dude. Ness, he was the ultimate fuck with you character because you could also do the up B and then I don't know if there's a more satisfying move in Super Smash Brothers than the up B into Ness into another character. Maybe the Falcon Punch, but love that so much. And then I'm not going to focus on any one game, but Sega Genesis and N64, Gunstar Heroes, right? One of Nick and I's favorite games. Golden Axe, Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 2, and then a special shout out to Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey for N64. Played a lot of that when I was a kid. But it's just those were the golden age days, man. I mean, gaming now I love it, and we love it, obviously, but I don't think you'll ever have such a pure time playing something than when you're a 10-year-old boy with your friends, playing a couch co-op game. So
Well,
slow news week, so I wanted to do a little bit of reminiscing down nostalgia lane.
Sure. No, that was fun. Again, it's thinking about those older games. Yeah, it brings back good memories.
Oh yeah.
There was no battle passes back then.
No, there wasn't. Nope, there was no patches back then. There was no anything back then.
All right, so we can move on and do a game that we've been played. On on John's recommendation that you heard on this very podcast, I went and played What Remains of Edith Finch. This is an indie game. It is an older one. It came out back in 2017. It comes from Giant Sparrow and Annapurna Interactive. It is currently sitting at an 88 on OpenCritic, so a very well-liked game.
Yes.
And this is a first-person game where you play as Edith Finch, a girl returning to her childhood home to discover the history of her family. Very positive history. And then this, as you find items, the story is kind of told through these little vignettes of each of the different family members and what happened to them. Right off the bat, the one thing I did not like about this game, because it is a very good game.
How slow you move. Is that it? Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I know.
Because you're like in the woods and you gotta walk up this path to the house, and you're just like, oh my God, run! And then you feel bad later because when you find out that your character's pregnant.
Yeah. Okay, don't run.
Yeah, you shouldn't run through these woods.
All right, walk fastly, briskly at least. Come on, like there should be something. Yeah, it's slow.
And it's going to be hard to talk about this game without light spoilers, because as you kind of learn the family history, nothing goes well for this family. I'm
going to say it right now. We should talk spoilers, and if you really want to play this game, just skip this part because it's a 2-hour game. How do you talk about it without spoilers?
Right. And you kind of find out that each person, well, it's hinted at as everyone's room is locked with their basically like a tombstone. It says
their birth year and the year they died.
Yeah. And so things aren't going to go well for these people. And and at first I didn't quite pick that up, like how bad it was going to be, because the first one you play as a little girl, I think she's like 11, and her mom didn't feed her. And so she's eating random things. She goes into her gerbil cage and eats the carrot out of there. She goes into the bathroom and eats toothpaste and weird berries and all kinds of weird stuff. And then she kind of has this like dream of being different animals. You play as an
fucking tripping balls, dude.
Yeah, you're playing as a cat and an owl and a sea monster and a shark. You're all kinds of different weird things. And I was like, well, this game is really bizarre. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious as to why they would start with that one, because it's like kind of the most it's probably the most interactive part of the game. Like lots of gameplay elements are thrown at you in that part.
Yeah, I would maybe agree. Maybe the Lewis's part, but yeah.
Yeah, and then as you find out as you play each of these characters, is they all die in not great ways.
All the Finch kids. The family is cursed. That's like the family lore.
Yeah,
is that the entire family's cursed.
And one of the things that I just really noted is like a lot of these are kids.
Oh, I think they're all kids, aren't they?
No, not
except for the one who was like trapped himself in the basement.
Yeah, he's older. You're right. Most of them are kids, and some of the ways they die are just very sad. And there's Sam. Sam was the other adult that died from the deer.
Right.
But yeah, and Lewis, of course. Which I don't know if you picked up on the Lewis to my Sam. That's why. Yeah. I was like, I usually. But the shocking ones are really the kid ones, and like the game is kind of like a downer on that front. When it doesn't paint it as grisly. You're not
having a camera zoom out on a 1-year-old drown in a bathtub,
but
you're a 1-year-old drowning in a bathtub,
and they play it out in kind of like imagination, right? Is a big part of it. Like, as the bathtub's filling, you become a frog and you're swimming with all the the bathtub toys, but like the kid is drowning. Like that's very dark. Like
that was dark as it gets, yeah.
Or the kid that swings off a cliff, but they present it like you're flying, but it's like, no, that kid fell off a cliff and died.
Yeah, I think the right word for all of these little vignettes is whimsical. I think whimsical is probably fantastical, the best representation of how the game and developers try to present these horrible situations, but through this lens of it's not good. None of this is good. There's no silver linings to kids dying. But like, you know, the kid who was on the swing and all he wanted to do, like every kid eventually thinks of at some point is, oh, can I go can I go around the bar and come back around, like do a 360? And yeah, his parents are morons and put it next to a cliff. But you know, as you go through, when you launch off of the seat, you basically you start soaring through the air. Or you know, when you're the little girl in the beginning and you turn into a cat, like it's all like you actually transform. Like you kind of see these things, and so I think it's an incredibly unique experience. Which as I'm getting older and older, like I value that more and more.
Yeah.
And I think it was just very well done to make this dense, compact thing. I honestly wish there were more games like this that are 2 to 3 hours, provide this pretty intense experience, but you leave it kind of still feeling good. Like I left that game, I don't know about you, and I'm probably a darker person than you are. I live in this kind of stuff, but like I still was like almost joyful at the end because it was presented in this way.
Yeah, and it does wrap it up very nicely. That's kind of the best part is like all this death. It kind of has a good message at the very end, and I won't spoil that. I'll just let people experience it. But yeah, and it's that parents stop being so neglectful is the actual lesson. Like feed your kid at night and don't let your kid swing off a cliff, or don't leave a bathtub with your baby in it unattended. You know?
Yeah, I don't even know how that's possible. I have 1-year-old daughters. I don't know how that's possible. Craziness.
But that is not the message. It wraps it up very, very well, and there are some unique gameplay elements that we didn't like. The Lewis section where you're kind of controlling two different things at once.
I do want to talk about the Lewis section real quick because I think it's some of the best. It's just so clever to me where you play as this guy who he spends his days in a fish factory cutting off heads of fish.
Yeah, cannery.
You know, one of the most repetitive, horrible things you can imagine, like the smell and all that stuff. And he basically has to escape in his mind, where the scene starts off and you're basically using your thumbsticks to kind of like move fish from one side to the other, I think you pull one down to chop, and like you're kind of doing that maybe.
The chopping's automatic.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe like 10, 15 times. And then a section of the screen kind of starts to go away. You still see the fish and you still see what you're doing, but it starts to have this like thought bubble looking thing, right? Where you're this little character and he's kind of like living his own little life, and he has this little town and little town members, and it's, you know, it's cute. And then like the dream gets a little bit bigger and a little less of the fish is seen, a little more of the dream is seen, and then it just eventually transforms into this thing where he's like this king of this world that he's created in his mind, and you're still doing the fish motions as like you're still doing this as you're like watching his vision play out in front of you on the TV. And it's just, while also there's this narrative happening about how he is trying to do anything he can to escape his boring, horrible life. Yeah. And it's just this.
It's voiced over by his therapist, who's kind of talking about like how he's doing better and how this world he created is making his work better and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and how does he die?
He sticks his head in the cannery.
Yeah. Yes. Very good.
Same device that chops the fish's heads off. He commits suicide. Yeah. So yeah, look at that, like that dark ending, but painted
presented in such a whimsical, weird, like, creative way. Like I really liked this game when it came out. Hence the recommendation, and probably my favorite walking sim I've ever played. You know, that's not my favorite of genres, but I think that I do think this game. Honestly, I would recommend this game to any single person due to its length. Mm-hmm. You know, even if you complete the game, you're 3 hours. You know, you got the platinum. Do you remember how long it took you?
Very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think I was like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
An afternoon.
Yeah, so.
No, and again, this is the kind of indie games I like. I know a lot of people like the indie games that are recreating nostalgic games, you know, the Metroidvanias, the games that we just don't get anymore. But this is the indie games I like, the Artful Escape and this, where it's just like it doesn't stay too long. It has a very unique experience and a very unique message at the end. But again, doing what video games do best and telling immersive, unique stories where you have some agency in how that story is told to you. and yeah, it's great.
I was a little nervous because I came into work and I creep on Nick. I was like, oh, you played, I creep on you, bud, whether you know it or not. And I noticed he got the platinum in it, so I was like, oh, cool, he played it. Let me get his opinion. And I was like, oh, what'd you think? He goes, yeah, great recommendation, John. Child death. And I'm like, oh, did you not like it? And I don't think I even got an answer out of you, really.
No, we got interrupted.
Yeah, we got interrupted, but good to know that you liked it at least.
Yeah, no, very good game.
Cool.
Very, very good game.
Cool.
Highly recommended. So, first game I beat this year, too. So,
nice.
I like it.
Nice.
I like it a lot. All right, John, we can't wait any longer.
Here's why we're all here.
So, our final topic is the HBO's The Last of Us show. We will be discussing all of episode 1. So, if you have not seen this by now, I hate you.
Yeah.
Go see it.
Connor, I know you don't listen to this podcast, but we hate you.
Yeah, it's the talk of the internet. It's, the big drama of the year.
This very short year so far.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's great. It is on the heels of an HBO price increase. That's how
Right.
how much they want you. They timed it perfectly. Let's really get into this thing. And I definitely want to focus on the differences because I think most of our listeners have played the game.
Yeah.
But let's just start with the opening because that is definitely a unique part. It opens, I believe it's 1960. Mm-hmm. We were on a talk show, and he's got two, I'm going to butcher this word, epidemiologists. Epidemiologists, thank you. Mm-hmm. Talking about pandemics, and getting their opinion of this. And as you would expect, they have to go into fungus. One of the guys is adamant that a fungal pandemic could occur and that we would be powerless to stop it.
And everybody laughed at him, Nick. Everybody was so dismissive. How could they be so idiotic?
And it's again, I think when you take away as with a show, you don't have the player. You're not picking up over 200 collectibles to learn more about about collectibles, about how the infection happened, about cordyceps and all that. So we're going to see this a lot in this show, and there's going to be more of these moments where the show is going to be explaining what's happening and how things work right in our faces like this. And it's still a great moment because again, it's just like this foreboding, tense thing that we know is coming. We know, even if you haven't played the game, the show is about, again, another apocalypse. So,
yeah, I think that was a very smart thing to do in the beginning. It did obviously a couple things. The main thing, anybody who's not familiar with the material, we're setting you up. This is what's going to happen. Just get a good amount of exposition out of the way. But I think it also did, I think one of the other reasons that they put it in there was to, and I use this not as a negative, but it was like a cheap shot to kind of take advantage of obviously what we've all experienced over the past couple of years in this virus that really fucked with a lot of people's lives. And so I think just inherently coming out and saying the word pandemic a couple of times was probably just like a no, this is bad. So if you thought that our pandemic was something just get ready, this is gonna be way worse.
Yeah.
Plus it had the guy from The Mummy. That guy's great. Every time I see that guy, he will forever be the brother from The Mummy. Jonathan, I think his name was.
Yeah.
But good way to start the show.
Yeah. And then from there, it launches us right into the title sequence of the show. Very good.
Yep.
Very
HBO.
Yeah. Like any other title sequences. Again, it uses Gustavo's main theme, so it's excellent, of course.
Yes.
And then we can talk about the before the pandemic, the opening 20 minutes of the video game. This gets a little more expanded as this before time just focuses pretty much on Sarah, played by Nico Parker, Joel's daughter. The camera and the story just follows her the entire time.
Yeah, you would think that the first 35 minutes of the show, you would think Sarah is the protagonist of the show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really wanted you to get connected to her. Really wanted you to kind of just see what type of person she is, and I think they did a good job of illustrating. She's a great kid. She wakes her dad up. His alarm's going off and he's not getting up. She cooks him breakfast. It's his birthday. She although she takes money from him to get him a present, she's thoughtful enough to get his watch fixed. And I don't know if I watched it again last night. I don't know if you noticed it, but when they're eating breakfast at the table in the morning, he needs to look at the time. He pulls out his phone, but first he slaps his wrist and he looks at his wrist and says, there's no watch there. So it was kind of like a small little thing, like, oh, he wants his watch, but he doesn't have it.
Yeah. This show is full of breadcrumbs like that.
Yeah. And and showing her taking the time, to spend time with her neighbor, right? Who does that? Who just goes and spends time with their elderly neighbor because they want company, and and go downtown to get this watch fixed. And so they really wanted to illustrate, because obviously with what's about to happen, how genuine and nice she is, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and there's a lot of liberties taken here. Obviously, her whole journey, introducing us to the neighbors, the Adlers.
Not in the game.
Yeah, right? Not in the game at all. And I just want to really point out one of the great scenes in this section is when she's over at the Adler's house and they take care of their elderly mom, who we see earlier cannot even eat. Like the son, it's either son or son-in-law. I don't know.
I think it's the son, and it was like maybe the only comedic moment in the show where
he's trying to feed her biscuits, and of course, like again, she's comatose pretty much, and she can
even chew.
Yeah, she can't eat it at all. And again, here's one of those breadcrumbs that we're gonna see later pay off. She can't move or anything, and there's this scene when Nico goes over there, or Sarah goes over there to kind of hang out and check in with them. She's looking at a stack of DVDs, and behind her you can see this grandma just getting infected, like her face twisting and her body contorting.
And it was all out of focus. So
I don't want to see that in focus. But just a very creepy scene. Just hinting at what's to come.
And I think that kind of underlies why the first 30 minutes was so effective, is that it was pretty mundane stuff, going shopping, but even when she's shopping, like the clerk rushes her out, be like, hey, you got to go home. Obviously all the tanks and police cars and stuff, but that moment where she's with her neighbors is just, it's tense, but she's literally just looking at videos and baking cookies with this. Like, they did such a good job of making sure that the viewer knew what was coming, but this slow burn towards it.
Yeah. So great. And I don't think there are any highlights up until the infection part. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I just again, just how good of a relationship it seemed that Joel and Sarah had, but also, Tommy shows up at breakfast, and how you could tell that Tommy and Sarah are really good together. Joel and Tommy have a good relationship. They're joking with each other immediately, and they work together and things like that. So I think the show is really trying to just frame, obviously, family and love, and how those can be such a powerful and good thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then we get into, those opening moments of when the apocalypse hits. But again, it plays out a little differently. This time, Sarah goes over to the neighbors.
Because the dog got out.
Yep, because the dog got out. And discovers that things aren't great over there. Both of them have been attacked, the son and the wife. And that the comatose grandma is now very mobile now and able to move around, and a great highlight of how the cordyceps just can override any kind of physical and mental ailments you have and turn you into a monster.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like it first fixed her and then fucked her. Not to put it too crass, but yeah, this is this thing that took over her body, this decrepit body, but like, it gave her mobility again, but obviously took her mind at the same time. Mm-hmm. Not that she probably had much of one to begin with, but so this is kind of the first time that we see truly what an infected looks like. Obviously in the first phase of infection, anybody familiar with the series knows that it progressively gets worse. But they showed the biggest difference, I think, in the models here versus the game is you got a very good look at their mouths, which is one of the most disturbing parts of this whole thing to me. Is like, obviously the infection gets spread through biting, and so as one of the infected bites somebody, these tendril fungus mushroomy looking things kind of protrude out of the mouth and kind of recede back in, and it's fucking disgusting. It's really, really gross. But so it's at this point that we see the older Mrs. Adler notices.
Respond to that.
No, Siri. The older Mrs. Adler notices that Sarah is there and obviously starts to chase her in true fast zombie fashion, right? This is like 28 Days Later type zombie. This isn't, the slow moving kind. And, and so she runs out of the house, and this is where Joel and Tommy kind of come and finally, see Sarah, right? And say, hey, get in the truck, like we gotta go. And Joel is fucking fired up, ready to go. And then obviously at this point, the neighbor storms out of the house, which I thought was kind of a cool moment because I had the subtitles on. I don't know if you watch things with subtitles, but as she ran out, she like fell over and it said bones breaking. I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably like her decrepit old lady body, like just her bones are breaking. But again, this fungus is able to take control and really just make her move the way she needs to. But it's at this moment that she charges Joel. Joel has a big fucking wrench in his hand, and he does what he does to protect his family. Hits her upside the head and kills her. And I think it's this is obviously a really important moment because it shows Sarah for I think the first time kind of like, oh shit, like this is where this is going. Dad, how could you do that? Like this is the most messed up thing ever. I don't think she really kind of obviously gets the gravity of the situation. Maybe just thought that Miss Adler is sick, and then at this point knows, oh no, we're fucking leaving. My dad and my uncle are talking about going to Mexico. They're driving in the car away from the family, and shit really starts to pop off.
Yeah, and this is a lot similar to the game as the whole truck sequence as they're driving through the fields and then eventually into town, and things play out a little different here. A plane comes crashing out of the sky, which is just insane. An insane visual, like just freaky as fuck. Like if that happened in the game, it would just be just as scary. Mm-hmm. And I think the only other difference here is it's not as long. Like I don't think the overall sequence is as long because I remember you were carrying Sarah for a while and running through alleys and going through all kinds of things. This sequence of events, it gets right to the big vocal point pretty fast. The truck as the plane crashes, a large piece of it knocks the truck over. Tommy, Joel, and Sarah, the truck's overturned. They're all hurt, but Sarah's obviously hurt the worst. She can't walk. It looks like her ankle is straight up broken. Yeah, very similar to the game.
Yep, similar to the game. Joel picks her up, runs, but I think at this point is one of the cooler moments of the show. One infected notices them and starts to chase them, and the stunt actor did an incredible job. He's jumping over counters, he's running into things, really showcasing just how lost these people are. But this leads to the roughest part of the entire episode. Nick, talk about it because I'm gonna cry.
I don't really think we need to talk about it. I mean, we know what happens. She dies. She gets shot, and
pretty much one for one what happens in the game. Yeah,
so I had nothing to add to it.
I just got to say, I think Joel and Sarah did an incredible job at that part. I'm not an actor. I can't create emotion from nothing, but Sarah felt like she got fucking shot. She was screaming in pain, scared, terrified, didn't know what to do, and Joel obviously, as
any father would, just didn't know what to do besides try to comfort his daughter as best she could. But obviously she fades very fast, and that's when we get our cut to 20 years later.
Yep. And we get a good scene here, a really good scene, where a kid, and again, we're going to get more explanation of the world. A kid wanders into Boston, the city, as we know, where the first part of the game takes place. And he comes there, and this is when we're introduced to the scanner that determines whether you're infected or not. And unfortunately, this kid is infected and has to deal with the Fedra officer, comforting the kid, knowing that he was about to die. And again, breadcrumbs, because as we know, that scanner is going to come back later in the episode. And then just another great scene in which Tess and Joel are throwing bodies into a fire, kind of doing, I think it was Tess. It was Tess.
No, it wasn't, because she was captured by Robert.
Oh, okay. So him and just another lady are just throwing bodies in the fire, and then we see this kid's body in the truck, and of course, the lady can't do it. And again, we're getting to telegraph that Stone Cold Joel that we know as players of the game. He just is like, whatever, throws a child's body into a fire like it's nothing, And again, establishing that this isn't the Joel of 20 years ago anymore.
Going back to the kid with the Fedra officer real quick, it is interesting because, Fedra, besides obviously the virus, the cordyceps and things, one could argue that Fedra's the bad guys in this situation, right? They're kind of like the militaristic, authoritarian, organization that's keeping everybody, from having their freedom, so to speak, right? They're who the Fireflies are fighting. But I found it very interesting that, they immediately framed Fedra as this warm, compassionate kind of individual, right? Where she's like, she's talking to the kid instead of being like, hey, kid, you're infected, get fucked, go die. Which, like, this is how that world is. Like, if you've played this game, like, you know that people just get shot in the streets. People. Well,
how this plays out in the game, like how we learn about the scanner is you're walking as Joel, and a bunch of people are along a wall getting scanned, and the second that guy shows up red, they pop his ass.
Right. And granted, that's a guy versus a kid, so maybe there's a difference there. But I did find it interesting that they framed the potential, quote unquote, bad guys, at least from the human side of things, as this very, compassionate, warm person who's saying, no, we'll get you all your favorite foods, play as many toys as you want, and like really just kind of felt for this kid as opposed to like the stone cold thing that you'd kind of expect. So I did find that interesting. I don't know if that's going to become a theme later, at all, or if that was just kind of a, hey, we're just going to make you feel a little more emotion than you may have felt.
When we saw that in The Last of Us Part 2 is kind of humanizing, the other side. Yeah. And so, I'd imagine the show wants to do the same because, Fedra is a big company. Not everyone in it is horrible and out to kill everyone. So,
right.
There is some compassion there on both sides and assholes on both sides as the real world works, Mm-hmm. So and this is a moment I want to highlight the companion podcast. So HBO does have a companion podcast hosted by Troy Baker, who voices Joel in the video games, and he has Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin on. And one of the fun little things that they noted about this particular scene is this is where the original episode 1 was supposed to end, with Joel throwing the body in the fire, and it was the executives of HBO that were like, no, you can't do that. Like this, that's a horrible point to end on. Like there's no hope. There's like,
right. People aren't gonna want to come back.
Yep. So they wanted Ellie to be in the first episode. So this is an interesting note that this is where the original episode was going to end. And then, is there any more parts as we move on that you wanted to highlight? We get introduced to Bella Ramsey as Ellie, plays her perfectly. I think she plays the sassy, sarcastic teenager that we known to come and love, and sounds just like her. A lot of the mannerisms seem the same to me.
Yeah, no, I think that was probably the thing she nailed the most was like the mannerisms and whatnot. I will say I think they came out a little too strong with it, just because the very first vocalization you get from Ellie is her counting to 10 and ending the count with 9 and 10 being "fuck you," and it seemed a little much immediate. Granted, she's been locked up for a couple of days, so she's pissed off. But yeah, I think she did. Bella did. A good job with Ellie. I mean, Ellie is my favorite character, I think, in video games. So it's a very, very high bar. I love her. I love Ashley Johnson's performance. I have an obsession with Ashley Johnson's voice as a whole. It's just a thing that I have. So, that's the one.
Excited to see her in the show?
Yeah, of course. I know she's supposed to play Ellie's mom, so that'll obviously be a flashback, so it might be very short, but she's got the steepest hill to climb, but I have no complaints so far. I think she's, doing definitely a commendable job.
Yeah. She doesn't have too much to work with here. It's just she's there, and then just she's like chained up, and obviously the same actress who played Marlene in the video game is back to play Marlene. Meryl Dandridge? Merle Dandridge? I don't know. Meryl. Okay. Meryl. Is back. So, and everything's good all around. The next scene I want to talk about is pretty far along, the scene with the scanner and finding out Ellie's infected. Is there any more that you wanted to touch upon?
No, I appreciated that they kind of fleshed it out a little bit with Marlene and her, I don't know, calling her lieutenants, kind of explaining the scenario of, like, why are we attacking all these random spots, and, explaining that, like, no, we're doing that to distract Fedra so that we can get Ellie out, who is basically the Holy Grail at this point. And so, I appreciated them fleshing that out a little bit more, because I kind of didn't get that as I was playing through the game. I just, it was just thought I was escaping a city, so that was nice to see. But other than that, no, I think we're probably...
And they do a good job of fleshing out Joel, too, as well as not only being like a smuggler. We have a scene where he's selling prescription drugs to a guard, and that we also get a scene where Robert is begging Tess not to sick Joel on him, because everyone knows that he's not a guy that you fuck with. There's even a great scene. I think a Firefly walks up to Joel to like try and recruit him, and is just like, Joel is not having it.
If you tell me to look for the light, I'll break your fucking jaw. It's perfect.
Yeah, so great. Like, God, Pedro Pascal is just killing it.
And this might be a good point to talk about the actors. I know we got a little more of the narrative to cover, but I am so pleased with everybody. Thus far. We still have to see Bill. We still have to see a lot of other big characters, but Pedro is doing a fantastic job. Bella's great. I think one of the weird standouts, and he's not in the episode all that much, but he nails the voice and everything, is Tommy, played by Gabriel Luna. I think they did a great job with that. And Anna Torv as Tess is, she's hardened, but you can tell obviously she has a lot of compassion for Joel and things, and that always obviously creates an interesting dynamic. So, I think they all did, a very, very good job, as is to be expected with HBO. HBO doesn't fuck with that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just wanted to highlight again a scene that plays out in the game is where they get caught by a Fedra officer, and of course he makes sure they're not infected, and of course Ellie comes up as infected, and plays out a little differently here, because Joel has, when the gun's pointed at Joel, he kind of has an actual flashback, like a flashback to the scene where Sarah died, and that puts him in a rage where he goes and just mercilessly beats the shit out of this guy to death, like just punches in the face over and over and over again.
The same guard he sold pills to.
Yeah. And the cool little thing that you notice here is, unlike Sarah, who was freaked out when Joel used violence, Ellie is into it. She's like
creepily into it. She has this weird thing where she kind of like comes to the side and like smirks and like has this weird look on her face. It's like, ugh, you are a fucked up little girl, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm sure they're gonna play this out more as to why. But I think she definitely liked the idea of, because she was very nervous before they left. Like, have you smuggled before? Have you been out the city before? And all that. And then just seeing, like, Joel just kill a guy just like that with his bare hands, and she's like, oh, I'm okay.
This is my guy.
yeah, I'm in safe hands.
Yeah.
So just so much great little, like I said, breadcrumbs that are just scattered throughout the episode that have big payoffs later to, the eagle-eyed watcher, and just a lot of little nuances to the show that put it in the category of the best shows, Andor and Better Call Saul last year. The performances are there.
Let's just leave Better Call Saul there.
Okay, shut up.
Sorry, I can't help myself. No, Andor's good.
Yeah, because that's it's being received exceptionally well. I think it has a 9.4 on IMDb right now. Granted, I'm sure that will drop. Right now the people that have watched it are the diehards, the people that were giddy for it from the get-go. Yeah. So, but I have not heard really any complaints. It for sure is the. I don't think anybody at this point would argue best video game adaptation of anything ever. So I'm so excited to just go on this, these 9 episodes and, really, I can't wait to see Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal get close to one another. Like to where you start in this game and where you end in this game is insane how far you go with a relationship, and so to see that kind of gradually progress throughout the season is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I forced my wife to watch it, despite her much of her chagrins. I basically just put it on, and when she was in the same room, and she ended up watching it and said she loved it. So, haha, Kylie, gotcha. So hopefully she watches that with me as well, to have somebody else to who's never played the game to bounce it off on. But I'm glad my instincts were right. I couldn't be more pleased. And as we said in the front of this discussion, if you have not watched this yet, first off, you shouldn't be listening to this right now. But yeah, definitely give it a watch.
Yeah,
it's really special.
The only real bummer is that we have to wait.
I hate watching shows week by week, man. I know you're kind of used to this stuff. I hate it. I fucking hate it. I am much rather wait for them all to come on, and I can watch them at my leisure. But I couldn't do that with this. There's no fucking way. So
there's just so many good scenes. One more thing I wanted to, in the podcast, we learned that Sony is just throwing their IPs at everybody.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Craig Mazin talked with, Sony, I forget the team that's offering up all their
marketing.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And they're like, well, are there any of our multiple IPs? Like, you want to make any of this? And he's like, well, The Last of Us isn't on there.
Yeah. It sounds like they literally had a PlayStation Studios portfolio book and said, "Here, Craig, what would you like?" And it's like everything's on the table. So as much as we've seen with Twisted Metal show coming and rumors of Gravity Rush movies and things like that, it definitely explains everything. What was the reason that The Last of is because they initially wanted Neil to try and make a movie of The Last of Us, and he said he couldn't do it, right?
Yeah, he did say that as well. And I think it's just because it's Neil's baby, so
Neil has carte blanche.
He won't let other people be like, oh, show it off.
But it was super interesting because Neil watched Chernobyl, which was Craig's show, and loved it. And Craig is inherently a Last of Us junkie, so he obviously loves Neil. They had a mutual friend, met for lunch, and then I guess after lunch walked across to HBO, pitched the show. Here we are. Yeah. So it's a really funny kind of story to listen to. But
yeah, I believe the HBO exec said, "Yeah, Craig, show me the next show that makes you float." And this makes you float, so we're gonna make it.
Yep. So you should watch Chernobyl, Nick. If if you like this, you should check that out because that show's good too. Really, really good.
Yeah. So fantastic. And then expect us to be breaking this down.
Yeah.
Week after week until this.
Yeah. So episode 2 is I think 50 minutes. So we'll probably see a lot of the journey to the state capitol building. If you're familiar with that, and maybe some little snippets here and there, but episode 3 is apparently another 80-minute or so. She'll get a lot of Bill backstory, things like that. But
yeah, God, can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
We're
so
eating good.
That is 6 things. Do we have anything else to tease for next week?
Well,
started Devil May Cry 5, but I not played enough to bring it.
Right. Are you're going to keep going even though the writing is ridiculous?
Yeah, we'll see how far I get, but
okay.
I do plan on playing more.
No, I mean, I platinumed a little indie game called Minute. I don't think it's a big enough game to really talk about, but it's really cool. You play the game in 60-second intervals, so played that, but no, I'm still happy to report that Elden Ring kind of has me by the hooks again, and it's fucking wonderful, and I love it, and I just need my family to stay away from me so that I can play it.
Yeah.
But no, I am looking for maybe another smaller game. I do like to have my big and little game going at the same time. And I'm still looking at Dying Light 2 and Tales of Arise sitting on my shelf, and Cyberpunk 2077. So try to keep me away from those, Nick, until I can beat Elden Ring. But,
beat Elden Ring.
I'm trying.
We will actually have reviews for Dead Space and for Spoken next week, so I definitely want to talk about those. I'm very curious where
that's true. That's something to tease for everybody. Is I do plan on getting Dead Space Remake, unless if it has pretty negative reviews off the bat. I'm not going to probably have it day one, but I am in the camp that I think Dead Space is my favorite survival horror game ever. So I will be playing that, I think, somewhere between Elden Ring and those other games, those other 60-hour games that I mentioned.
Yeah, John can't help himself.
My eyes are bigger than my stomach.
Yeah. If this table was full of food, you would have tried everything.
Because I'm, as I was telling Nick earlier, I was last night had Elden Ring on my TV, had my controller in my lap. The game was going, but I had my phone in front of my face playing Into the Breach because I can't help myself.
I understand. Yeah,
it's not all my family; it's my fault too.
All right, John. What song are we ending them on today?
We are doing the Uncharted 4, I believe it's called Nathan Drake's Theme by, I was going to say Hank Jackman. Not by Hugh Jackman. If you played any of the Uncharted games, you know it. It's what you hear at the menu. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, very great. Very iconic theme. And I can't wait to hear it for that Uncharted 5 teaser later this year that you predicted.
Yep, it's going to happen. And I'm sorry, I think I said Hank Jackman, Henry Jackman. But Hank is a short name for Henry, so I'm not wrong.
Okay, it's HJ.
HJ.
Everyone loves HJ.
Yes, HJ's great.
All right, on that very high note, we will be leaving you. We will be back next week with 6 more things. We love you all. Thanks for listening. See you then.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.